Welcome to our kitchen. Today we prepare ancient Roman moretum from Columellas dera rustica and Hapalos artos, an ancient Greek bread from Athenaeus, the hypnosophists. We start with the ingredients. For the bread we need flour, olive oil, milk and yeast. For the moretum, cheese, pine nuts, white wine vinegar, white pepper, and dried aromatic herbs, oregano, savory, pennyroyal, and thyme. First, we need the bread. To make 3 bread rolls, we used about 300 grams of flour, 2 pinches of salt, 1 musteus, about 30 millimeters of olive oil, and 100 of milk, kneading all the ingredients with enough water to form a soft dough. If you knead this bread at room temperature, the dough must look a lot softer than the one you see here. We are cooking outdoors in winter, and the dough is harder than it would be at a higher room temperature. For this recipe we used a kind of dry yeast, described by Pliny and Palladius, called musteus, prepared by kneading millet flour and grape must and shaping small cakes. Then we let dry the cakes. In this way the natural yeasts present in the must are preserved for 1 year. We prepared it in the past for a poppy seed bread recipe that we found in Pliny's Naturalis Historia. If you prefer, you can use sourdough or a leftover piece of bread dough, the most common method to leaven bread according to Pliny. We prepared in the past sourdough from a recipe by Pliny to make another Greek bread called artolaganon. The bread we are baking today is called hapalos artos, which means soft bread, and in the source we read that it was very common in Greece, as well as in Cappadocia and Syria. Syrians called it lachma. The passage in the text includes just the ingredients, which are a bit of milk, enough oil and salt, and the suggestion to prepare a soft dough and eat the bread still hot. The author of this recipe, however, is not Athenaeus, who reports in the Hypnosophists a few fragments of works written by other authors, but Chrysippus of Tyana, a famous ancient baker, whose book is lost. From Chrysippus' fragments, we prepared in the past artolaganon and a Greek sweet called gastris. You find the links to poppy seed bread, artolaganon and gastris in the description below. We let the dough rest overnight. The following day we shape 3 bread rolls and cook them in the oven for about 40 minutes. We know nothing about the size of the hapalos artos, being given for granted by Chrysippus of Tyana. But in any case, we know from Galen's work that bread was shaped in different sizes and baked with several methods. But there are no descriptions about this specific bread in the Hypnosophists. In any case, this recipe is listed among others that are leavened and made with white wheat flour, the most common kind of flour to make bread in Greece according to Galen. To know more about ancient food and cuisine, we suggest reading our new book, Ancient Roman Cooking, available in English and Italian on Amazon, in printed and ebook editions. On our Patreon page, in addition, you find every week further articles and translations of medieval and ancient sources. Buying our book and supporting us on Patreon are all ways to help us to continue making new videos. Or if you prefer, you may just buy us a beer. You find all the links in the description below. Meanwhile, we prepare the moretum. We grind the white pepper and the aromatic herbs. Columella lists 4 aromatic herbs, but tries to use the ones we have at disposal, even just one. Thyme and savory are actually quite similar. Oregano may be substituted with marjoram, and pennyroyal with mint. Moretum is a term that includes recipes characterized by the presence of herbs, fresh or dried, and cheese. Some recipes by Columella recall a bit the pesto alla genovese, a traditional Italian sauce. This one instead is more a cheese paste, aromatized with pepper and aromatic herbs. We prepared in the past a different recipe for Moretum, selected from a poem once attributed to Virgil, and collected in the Appendix Virgiliana. These 2 recipes are quite different. Columella's recipe is more refined, the other instead is meant for a poor farmer. In Columella's recipe, pepper has the same role as the garlic used by Virgil's farmer. It gives a pleasant, spicy note to the Moretum. We paired it with bread in the same way that it is eaten in Virgil's poem. But instead of a flat bread, we chose a different recipe that enhances a dish more delicate and refined. Then we cut the cheese into small pieces, pound it in the mortar, and add a bit of vinegar. We use a firm cheese made with cow and sheep milk, but Columella writes to use the kind of cheese we prefer, which must be pounded in the mortar with the herbs and pine nuts. As an alternative, Columella recommends either hazelnuts or almonds instead of pine nuts. But in another recipe for Moretum, we find also roasted sesame seeds. We serve the Moretum, drizzling a little olive oil, and spread it on the hot bread. The bread is delicate and fragrant, and its flavor pairs perfectly with the aroma of the herbs and cheese. This Moretum is actually more similar to Virgil's Moretum than we would expect, since pepper has the same function as garlic in the other recipe. The outcome is a cheesy paste, very aromatic and intense, with a pleasant spicy note. Whereas in Virgil's poem, the Moretum represents the entire meal of the farmer, Columella's recipe is probably meant as an appetizer. We serve it with Cato's pickled olives and epitirum, and it was great. You find the links to Cato's recipes in the description below. If you're interested in ancient foods and flavors, subscribe our channel and consider supporting us on Patreon.